AskReddit by internal skating. What's a quote that permanently changed the way you look at things? Let go or be dragged, an old Zen proverb I heard at a meditation class. Really changed the way I let myself worry about things. Do you listen or just wait to speak? Reading all the other comments and thinking, yeah, that makes sense, and yeah, I'll use that. Then there's this that's really hit home. I get so far through listening, then hear something I want to reply to, and then don't hear any more of the conversation. I had a professor in college, he called it the 10/90 rule. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Changed my life. Edit. Thank you for the award. I hope this helped at least one person. It's honestly so simple, we can all do it every day. It really changes your perspective when you put it into use. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. Honesty without kindness is brutality. Kindness without honesty is manipulation. If you wouldn't take advice from them, why would you take criticism some dude on YouTube? I just never thought of it that way before, and I stopped spending so much energy trying to get people to like me. Luck favors the prepared. You might be the sweetest peach on the tree, but some people just don't like peaches. This helped me get over my lifelong desire to be liked by everyone, and allowed me to focus on becoming someone I actually liked. Anyone else read this in a southern accent, lol? I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened. Mark Twain. Found it on a workbook for anxiety disorders. My therapist once told me that living in the future is anxiety, living in the past is depression. Only good way is to live in the present moment. Good luck. Ha. Long time ago I was meeting two women on the sidewalk, and just as we passed each other I heard this one sentence from one of them. You don't notice your progress in life because you are always raising the bar. That is so true. When you're progressing, your standards get higher and higher. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Aristotle. And yes, it isn't the real quote, but elementary school aged me internalized that thought, and I have applied it to everything ever since then. I don't know where it came from, but a quote that is stuck with me says, "Don't think of any thoughts as being negative because they are just thoughts. Who told you it was negative? It's just a thought, you're making it up. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. If you think of it as just a thought, it has no power. However, if you think of it as reality, it destroys you. If you look for the light, you will often find it, but if you look for the dark, it is all you will ever see." Uncle Iroh, Legend of Korra. Has helped me through some dark times in the past, just looking for that small bit of good in a heap of bad. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Reminds me of 6 months from now. You'd wish you'd started 6 months ago. And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. John Steinbeck, East of Eden. Deleted. Worrying only means you suffer twice. Edit. Thanks for the awards, guys. I'm all aflutter. The one I heard was worrying is a waste of imagination, which struck a chord with me. No one raindrop thinks it causes the flood. The bee doesn't waste its time trying to convince the fly that honey is better than shit. Don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. This helped a lot with my guilt and burgeoning martyr complex. Yes. This changed my life when I first heard it. It had literally never occurred to me to not sacrifice everything I was at all times for everyone. I had just been raised that way, and it's an entirely toxic way to live. It's easy to fool someone, it's hard to convince them that they've been fooled. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Carl Sagan. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it is a quiet voice at the end of the day saying, "I will try again tomorrow." Marianne Radmacher. I came across this a long time ago, at a point in life that I really needed this lesson. It's okay if I feel sad and resigned, if my depression beat me for today and I wasn't able to function. I didn't fail. I'm not weak. I will try again tomorrow. Courage is not the towering oak that sees storms come and go. It is the fragile flower that blossoms in the snow. If you are trying to break a habit, don't say "this is the last time I'm doing it" to yourself. Instead, say "this is the first time I'm not doing it." Who I was then isn't who I am now. Left double quotation mark. Instead of saying "I'm quitting smoking," say "I'm a non-smoker." When people show you who they are, believe them. Maya Angelou. So much wisdom from Maya Angelou. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. That mountain you've been carrying, you were only supposed to climb, really helped me overcome a lot of traumatic experiences and difficult chapters in my life. I hope it helps someone else out there. It reminds me of the Buddhist parable. Two monks are walking down a trail when they come to a river. A woman is standing by the banks of the river. She is afraid to cross because of the current. The older monk says, "I will carry you across," and he does so. The woman and the monks go their separate ways. Hours later, the younger monk says, "Brother, our order forbids us from touching a woman, yet back at the river, you carried that woman across." And the older monk says, "I put that woman down at the river. You are the one who has carried her all this way." Dear Abby's response to a writer thinking of going back to school but worried that she will be 40 by the time she got her degree. How old will you be in 4 years if you don't get your degree? You are going to be 40 anyway, with or without your degree. It reminded me that letting age stop me from my plans was just silly. Also, working at a community college and seeing so many people going back to school in their 30s, 40s, 50s and thriving, the quote really spoke to me. I went back to school in my late 20s, gonna graduate after turning 33 this year, and I am super jazzed to have gained all these new skills. Edit. Thank you everyone for the support and well wishes. Always remember that it's never too late to pick up new skills. The axe forgets, the tree remembers. Zimbabwean proverb. People don't forget how they were treated, that's why it's so important to be kind. Edited to @ I honestly did not expect this to blow up. Thanks y'all. I saw this one time under a post about parenting and it stuck with me. As a mother of 2 stubborn toddlers, some days are often filled with impatience and frustration. I use this quote to remind myself that how I am with them will be what helps to shape them. My husband and I set the example for them, and both of us had crappy childhoods. I don't want them traumatized like I was as a child. I want them to be molded with love, not negativity. Never be so kind you forget to be clever, and never be so clever you forget to be kind. Just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean you gained me as an enemy. I still want to see you eat, just not at my table. I've been dealing with a few fizzled relationships lately, and this is so on point. The last thing I wish for is for them to be fucked over. At the same time, I don't need to see your face. Assume whoever you're listening to knows something you don't. This is words to live by. If you spend time around people you quickly learn most people can provide some insight into the world you don't have. I worked it in the factory, and what factory workers have taught me about the world and labor has massively changed my view of the world and the work people choose to do vs what they have to do. Your kid isn't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. The only way out is through. The latter I heard in Scientology. They'd use it to justify staying when times were tough, like you were crossing an abyss to relief. I would counter any sunk cost manipulators using that quote to make someone stay with. The way out is the way out, the front door. My grandfather once told me, no matter where you go, there you are. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Carl Sagan, Pale Blue Dot. Don't let a wishbone grow where a backbone should be. It's no use wasting time worrying what other people think about you. No one is thinking about you. And remember to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. Been living up to those ideals recently and I feel I have just started living. I understand there's a guy inside me who wants to lay in bed, smoke weed all day, and watch cartoons and old movies. My whole life is a series of stratagems to avoid and outwit that guy, Anthony Bourdain. Fuck, I lost. Be afraid, but do it anyway. Carrie Fisher. It's not bravery if you're not scared. I can do anything but I can't do everything. Reminds me of something in True Detective Season 1, that life is barely long enough to get good at one thing, so be careful what you get good at. You cannot convince people to love you. This is an absolute rule. No one will ever give you love because you want him or her to give it. Real love moves freely in both directions. Don't waste your time on anything else, Cheryl Strayed. Fake love is mighty convincing in a world where real love is mighty rare. Some people die at 25 and aren't buried until 75. Ben Franklin. Today is the oldest you've ever been in your life and the youngest you'll ever be again. For some reason this reminds me of when Bart said this is the worst day of my life and Homer corrects the worst day of your life so far. Resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. When seeking revenge dig to graves, Confucius. The pain I feel now is the happiness I had before. That's the deal, C.S. Lewis. Oof. God punch. Grief is the loss of what we love. I visited Pearl Harbor this week and the one that struck me was, there were many acts of heroism that day, not all of them recorded. It reminds me that even when nobody is watching, it's still important to put forward your best. Character is what you do when no one is looking. Everyone is somebody else's weirdo. Can I adopt a weirdo? Edit. Fuck me, I got a lot of adoptees. Never attribute a malice at which can be adequately explained by stupidity. Hanlon's razor. Not everyone's out to get you. There are a lot of stupid people in the world. There's a Buddhist quote, don't believe everything you think. Very much related to mindfulness and the idea that you are not what you think. Sometimes we have bad thoughts that we only think because we physically feel bad. That doesn't make us bad. Just observe and let the thoughts pass. Honey, I hope it's the worst thing that ever happens to you. From my dad when I was complaining about something. He probably didn't intend for it to be deep or anything, but it puts things in perspective. I think of it all the time. Sometimes I have to tell myself if that's the worst thing that happens to me all day, it will be a pretty good day. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. John Shedd. My best mate's favorite quote was, "Smooth seas never made a skilled sailor." The people who say you can't and you won't are usually the ones scared that you will. On the wall, the background of an episode of The Killing. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. C.S. Lewis. Since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Otherwise you are making their destiny not brighter but darker. C.S. Lewis. Don't put off the important in favor of the urgent. Paraphrased, when people act crazy, they're either actually crazy, which is unlikely, or there's a good reason for their behavior that you just haven't figured out. Dr. David Burns in his book Feeling Good Together. Excellent book about getting along with people and trying to understand them. Edit. Wow, thanks for the awards and the discussions here. It's worth mentioning that, in my quote, crazy really refers to surprising or unreasonable behavior, not genuine mentalness, and good reason refers more to an explanation for the behavior. The point of the quote is to not write people off because you don't understand them. That is a concept in teaching too. Every behavior meets a need. Basically, when kids are acting out, if we can figure out what need is being met by the behavior, we can figure out a better way to address that issue and resolve the behavior. People don't think about you as much as you imagine they do. Similarly, I've heard this as, don't worry about what others think of you, because in most cases they don't.